Right, everyone, thank you for joining Project Peak Performance. Delighted that on this episode we are joined with the very lively, very enthusiastic Chris Hunt. I've got myself here with Dave Gibbons, and I'm going to give a little bit of an intro on Chris before he gets stuck in, because once he gets going, he might get going. So just so you know who you're about to listen to, Chris is a former Royal Marine Commando, qualified in mental performance mastery. He is the founder of the Therapycise Toolkit, father of 4 daughters, host of the Wellness Radio Show, former fitness columnist, and one of the most enthusiastic people I know. So that's the intro. That's what we're going to talk about,
Wow.
Chris. How are you doing?
Oh, I like that. I like that. So, do you know what? I'm getting a little bit excited now just from hearing that. I'm an all right guy. I've got some cool things going on. It's all right.
That's a fair tick box you got there, my man. Very much
Yeah.
so. Yeah,
Yeah. I honestly, like, and in no particular order, all those things are important as well, right? I love the fact you
absolutely.
touched on, obviously, the Therapycise Toolkit, obviously the Royal Marines Commando element, a huge part of my life, my wife, my daughters, loads of different things that I've been through and I continue to make a major part of my lifestyle. But yeah, I'm excited. Let's go for it.
Love that. I think we're gonna unpack a few of those, but the first place, me and Dave were talking off camera, and because we're all about sort of peak performance, the one thing that we can't talk about, me and Dave and the rest of the pack can't talk about, is what peak performance looks like in arguably or unarguably the most elite combat unit on the planet, being the
Yeah.
Royal Marines Commandos. So we're genuinely selfishly interested to know from your point of view what happens in that process and what makes the Marine Commandos looked at and respected in the way they are across other military programs, but also the planet, really. So could we deep dive into that with you, Chris?
Yeah, 100%. How long we got?
As long as you
We've got
need,
all day.
mate. You're the Marine, not us. You tell us how long we've got.
Hey, look, do you know what, gents? The advert says it all. Like, you got the kind of current adverts and commercials about with, it's a state of mind. 110%. It's something that some of the guys going through Marines training have got a little bit before, but 100% it's cultivated throughout the 8 months of training and the reinforcement on a daily basis afterwards. But, I liked the back in the day adverts with 99.9% need not apply, part of the 0.1%. It's the Marines are cool. Like, if you don't mind me saying, when I joined the Marines in 2007, and I did like 7 years, and I absolutely loved it. And when I was going in was the program Commando on the Front Line. Yeah. So just before I started training, I was thinking, I want a challenge in life. And, I was already doing sales up north. I'd finished uni. And I was thinking, what can I, and at the time, I'll be honest with you, like, I knew the military was something that I was excited by. And it was like, do you know what? I fancy the Marines or the Paras. Now, obviously, I went with the best choice, the Marines, just in case any Paras listening. All right. But it was a close one between the two. But at the time, you may remember it. Like I said, it was 2006. On TV was the Commando on the Front Line program, and they were following recruits known as nods, because nodding dogs, because you're always so tired, through training. So at the time, I was like, wow, and that was when I started training, was in that kind of phase. But yeah, and in kind of answer to what you said there, Ian, it's something that's cultivated through a very strategic system of training. When you chat with other bootnecks, when you've passed out, because you'll think that your troop has been that one troop that's been harshly treated, or they got you doing things that no other troop would have done, for example. And it's only when you get out of training and start comparing stories, you realize it's a real systemized, not template, because there's a little bit of bespokeness to it, but things that happen throughout training that are all there for a purpose. It's to get you strong in here, strong in there, and be able to put up with, obviously, what you may have to deal with in certain situations when you get that green beret. Because when you get your green beret, it's very likely it's not just going to be training missions you're doing. You're going out on ops, especially when I was in anyway with the complete Afghan focus, for sure.
Well, yeah. And I looked on the website before, and it said obviously a bit of a recruitment drive on the website, but it said these are the skills that you need to have. There's just four ticks: a true team player with self-discipline, physical fitness and mental robustness, positivity in the face of adversity, and the ability to cope well under pressure.
Did they not have a fifth one?
They're the ones on the website today, yeah.
Because there's an unofficial fifth one. You've got to be essence as well. And essence is a bootneck term for really beautiful.
That's why you're not in it anymore.
That's why they took the fifth one down. Yeah, they got done for fraud. Now, all those four, it's what it's about. You're a team, and all the time in training. Like I look back to, I was thinking about when we were doing this podcast today, and I was thinking back to questions I might get asked, and experiences that happened to me during training and post training. And you look at it all, and it was just, when you're there at Lympstone, it is, I promise you, it is the greyest place you have ever been. But you go back there after you finish training, you go, not a bad place, this actually is quite nice. Yeah. But it's just, when you're there, you're tired. It's dark, you're wet. Every time you think you got it figured out, the training team will throw a curveball at you. You know, you get a kit muster, for example. They say it's at 6 a.m. You better be perfect. So you think, brilliant, I've got like 5 hours. An hour later, kit muster, 20 minutes. You're like, oh my God. And you're running around. It's crazy. And honestly, I'll tell you a couple of funny stories in a minute about what I went through in training. But it's all, when you get a bit older and you look back on it, you go, it was all for a purpose. Because especially, like I said, when I was in, everything, gents, became Afghanistan dominated. Like, they even tweaked little bits of training because everything was going into that. Like, I didn't manage to do a Norway because we're Arctic warfare trained. I didn't manage to do my jungle. And the reason for that was everything was based on the desert and Afghan. Yeah. Whereas now, funny old thing, the Marines are starting to do a little bit about what it was like before Afghanistan and Iraq. You know, like, they're getting back to the Norway, they're doing the jungle train. But at the time, all the resources were just going into Afghanistan, which, don't be wrong, was cool. But yeah, it was a mad period of training. Like I said, it was, you look back on it and it puts a smile on your face because the things that you did, but it was all there for a purpose. It was there to get you strong, tight. And I suppose, you know, if I'm honest, I could talk about loads of things, but the best bit of feedback I can always give Marines training and bootnecks in general is that, you know, everyone that's a bootneck that's got that green beret, that's got the flashes on the military rig, that's maybe got the Marines tattoo, for example, everyone has been through the same place. Yeah. Everyone has been on Dartmoor and Woodbury Common. And it's a little fact, you may not know this, it's the only cap badge in the armed forces where the commandos, or should we say the main recruits, and the officers train in exactly the same place. Yeah. Even when it comes down to the commando tests, even though they do their 30 miler, just slightly different, the officers, they have to navigate themselves. Other than that, it's the same routes. It's the same environments. So even if you don't particularly like your boss, you're kind of going, do you know what? Let me like him, but I tell you what, he's been through everything that I've been through. Yeah, so you have that mutual respect as well. And it creates this real tight body of men, you know, which I think is pretty outstanding.
Amazing. Love that. How many times throughout this training, because obviously you're a very enthusiastic guy now, and what I want to try and figure out is, were you like this before the Marines, or, you know, during that journey of the training? And I've seen the documentary series you're talking about now. It was filmed back then. It's actually, I think it's been re-released on Netflix.
Yes, it has. It was released a few years ago.
Yeah. So, and I've been watching it because actually my daughter's boyfriend is considering going in the Marines. We were having a look at it and see what it is. He's signing up for his training.
Give him my number. I'm not trying to do a little plug on the call, but give him my number and I'll have a chat with him for you. No issue.
No worries, mate. Oh, that'd be amazing. Thank you. But yeah, one of the things I've been watching this documentary in the last couple of weeks, funnily enough, because of what I've just said then, and it looked hellish. So number one question is, what the hell is it that made you even want to sign up for something so difficult?
Yeah.
And then the second question is, can you tell me the worst part of that training, the day that you woke up and thought, I'm not doing this?
Yeah.
If that came.
Yeah. Are you going to give me a little flashback? Start getting a little twitch?
PTSD.
A little twitch going on. Now, what made me join up? First of all, I wanted the challenge. And when I was at uni, I had the opportunity to do like a year's placement in the military, but there was loads of hoops to jump through. At the time I was at uni, I was getting drunk all the time, doing my course. I was like, well, can I either do that or Toys R Us? Oh, let's just go Toys R Us, right? Yeah. And then I finished uni. I went into sales. I was doing all right, but it wasn't getting me excited. I wasn't making me jump out of bed. And I've always been a real energetic, enthusiastic guy. By the way, go back to what you said a minute ago. My name in my football team when we were younger, I found it in an old program from years ago, was Mr. Smiler.
Right.
That
Okay.
was my name.
Yeah.
Mr. Smiler.
Yeah.
So I've always had that enthusiasm behind me, but yeah, I just wanted something more. And like I said, I'm a big believer in at the right time, at the right place, magic can happen. And I think the way I was feeling up north in this sales kind of job and the stuff I was seeing on TV, I was like, man, I just want to do this.
Yeah.
And as you can imagine, my parents weren't that thrilled at the time. Like, even though my granddad, he'd been in the army years and years ago. But, you know, I've been through uni. That went well, got a good grade. Was going into sales. Then obviously mum and dad were like, oh, brilliant. Here we go. And I was like, mum, I want to do something different. But I'll tell you an interesting story. There was no one prouder on pass out day than my parents. No one. That when I first went in, they were very like, are you sure? Are you sure? Yeah, I'm sure. Are you sure? Are you really sure? Which, bless them, they were trying to put a little bit of doubt in my mind. But you know what it's like. When you're an enthusiastic person and you're driven, you're disciplined, and you're committed, and you say you're going to do it, you follow through on that. So I knew straight away when I started applying, I was like, wow. And if I'm honest, I really wanted to do the officer route at first. But at the time, I believe it's changed now, but at the time, they only did an officer recruiting phase once a year. So they did an intake that once a year. And I was like, and I think it was just that if everything would have gone perfectly from like fitness test, the interviews, I'd have been out for like a month. And I was thinking, I'm hyped. I'm here. I'm going for this. Like, I'm not waiting another year. So at the end, I was like, you know what? I'll go through the commando route. All being well, I can do a late entry. I can then, you know, get promoted that way as well. So yeah, it was just that desire, man. It was just, this looks cool. It frightens me a little bit. And actually, yeah, if it all goes wrong, who cares? Worth giving it a go.
Good test for yourself.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, no, yeah, for sure. No, it was a wicked test. Like, you know, it was smart. It was training was, and I'll tell you a bit of story in a while about while I came out. I loved being a Marine, gents. Honestly, I'm not, if anyone listening that's got relatives or friends or children that, you know, lads that wanted to go through the Marines, it was my pride and joy. I loved being a Royal Marine. I loved being a bootneck. I love everything it stands for, the values, the pride that when you talk about it, the ethos on a daily basis of what you've got to live up to. It's a bit like the New Zealand jersey, in my opinion. I'm not saying it's exactly the same, but you look at the New Zealand All Blacks, right? When they get that jersey, it's a rite of passage. You get that jersey and you make sure you look after it and you pass it on to someone in a better position than what you got it in. Yeah. That's what I feel like the bootneck beret was about. That green beret is like, you've earned that. Yeah. You know, you've so I would have stayed in longer. Now we can go through why I left in a minute. It was all about family and my children at the time. Yeah. And a few things that were going on. But yeah, I loved being a Royal Marine. It was flipping awesome. But if you want to know one of the darkest
the days of training, this is.
Now I'm going to start putting everyone off. Now everyone's
no.
Thinking,
Hey,
I want to join the Marines. So you go, what?
Only 1% need apply.
Yeah, you know that. Have you ever heard of the mud run?
Have I ever? No, explain to. I've heard of mud runs, but
so
no.
Where Limpston is, it's on an estuary. Right? Actually, imagine about geology or geography. In estuaries, that water goes high and low. When the water goes down, you are left with what is known as a real muddy, cold, gritty, all that sediment. Yeah. So what you do in the Marines, every troop does one. We had to do two, by the way. Not that I'm comparing to other troops. They take you out early hours, middle of the night, and they give you a bit of character building work. So you might be there. You think, all sweet, beautiful. You're in your bed. Boom, lights go on. Get out of bed. We're doing a mud run, right? I promise you. So you get marched out the block, down through the gate. You got all the PTIs there. You got the troop corporals there, and they get you pushing logs with your elbows, sprinting, sit-ups, crawling. They're kicking mud at you. It is so cold and wet. I can't put it into words. It is minging. You're doing like a 45, 50-minute exercise class in thick mud that's cold. It's wet. It's disgusting. Anyway, that's bad enough, right? So you're already tired. You're already wet. They then get everyone back into the block. And I couldn't believe it. But you look back on that, I think it's quite funny. Even I can say it because I've been there and I've done it, gents. You get in. You've just had a beast in. You've been told how, you know, the reason why you got the beast in, which, by the way, was a ridiculous reason. But, hey, you take it. It's all right. Whatever. Then they got us all to take our coats off. So you're thinking, okay, this is a bit weird. What's going on here? They said, hold it with one of your sleeves. And you start swinging the jackets around as fast as you can. Now, unfortunately, when you've been in an estuary for 45, 50 minutes, a lot of mud, water, grit, dirt sits in that jacket. So when you start doing this, it is going everywhere. By the way, inspection in 3 hours, the block, your clothes, everything. So if you can imagine, not only you are tired, you are wet, you're heartbroken, you got to get all your kit clean because you've got an inspection. And by the way, there is mud and grit in every orifice, corner, crack, you name it, right? So you got to do that as well. And it's heartbreaking. But again, I can say this, I've been there and I've done it, gents. It's there for a reason.
What is the reason?
They're wanting people to flake out. They're
trying
wanting
to
to
break
see the
you.
ones that don't really want it.
Yeah.
That haven't maybe got what it takes. So that was one of my darkest moments. Other things they used to do was they get all your kit out, your locker, so you do like a parade and you'd be there. They get all your drill rig out. See, the way the blocks are in Lympstone, there's like 3 floors. So you'll be there on the stairs, holding your drill rig out. Drop it, everyone drops the drill rig off. Go and get your PT rig. Drop it, you got your PT rig. Then you get all your uniform. You name all your drill boots that you have perfectly shined. You can see your face in them. They're beautiful. Drop them off the banister. Right? You can hear these drill boots hitting the floor, gents, right? You know when a drill boot that's shiny that hits the floor,
Be dull.
man, they're going to be chipped. They're going to be chipped. They are going to be rancid. You're going to have to start again. But also you've got this massive pile of clothes at the bottom. Kit inspection, 3 hours, for example. You've got to run down, find your kit, get it all ready. It's just these little things, and they did it really periodically at the time when you just really didn't want it. You're already tired, you're already wet, you've already been beasted, but to put it into like a graphical form, like you might start a troop with 70, 80 lads in, and you get dropouts throughout. And you also get back troopers that would maybe join you from another troop that maybe had an injury. So the numbers are always going up and down. But the overall theme is all the way through. There's a purpose to it. It is hard. Life's hard. Operations are hard. You know, you do get thrown curveballs, and it's quite funny now because I look back on it and you go, you're always on edge. You're always like, what they're going to do next. And it was even one of the most harrowing phrases. I'm sorry if I'm going on a bit here. I'll get quite passionate about it. One of the most harrowing phrases I can remember is we got in the field, and the field is when you're on exercise, right? So you'd be somewhere around Dartmoor, and they would literally get everyone in a big line, and they'd just be like, the training team rubbing their hands going, no top brass here, lads. You're mine now. And you know you're in the field for 3 days. That's when you're going to get a beast in. There's no top brass to look at etiquette and ethics and things like that. It's a harrowing statement because you know some pain's coming your way. But again, I can gladly say this because I've been there and I've done it. And for anyone listening, don't just think this is some bullying environment where there's a system to it. Yeah. Life is hard. Operations are hard. When you're on tour like I was in Afghanistan, who you're going up against don't care about certain things. So you've got to be tough. You've got to have strong willpower. You've got to help each other through it. When you see your oppo that's hanging out, that's dangling, that you know's a really good lad, that's fit, that's strong, that's there for a reason, there with purpose, and they're having one of those days and one of those moments, and you know they're thinking about going, I'm done. I can't do this. You get random as a group and you say, man, you got this. Come on. And that's for me, like, there's loads of other little stories as well, gents. But
I bet you were a good guy, Chris, to be in that squad because being the smiler, being in peace, and I'm sure you had your down moments as well.
Definitely.
I would imagine having someone like you in there must have been quite helpful for the people around you, I would have thought.
Yeah, probably. Maybe when everyone was really tired, maybe not the most. I can be.
Come on, take his batteries out.
yeah, I can be quite intense, but it's no, definitely. But like I said, you just hit the nail on the head there, Ian. I had my moments as well. You know, there was some of these yomps we did. Like yomps is basically a long walk with a lot of weight on your back. You run bits, you walk bits. You're cold, you're wet, you're tired. The weight increases throughout training up into an exercise, which I now believe has changed. But back in the day, it was violent entry. And the weight on violent entry in your Bergens was something like 120, 130, 140 pounds. And that's full of like your kit, your rounds, your water, you name it. And they just plonk on loads of weight, and it's tiring and it's hard. And you're constantly yomping. And you do these, there's lots of, do you know what a rolling hill is?
Explain it.
So rolling hills. Let's say you go up Dartmoor, and let's say you go up a hill. You ever got towards the top of the hill and you go, oh my God, I can't wait to get to the top. And you just get to the top And then you realize there's another hill straight over the top
Like
of
a
that.
false summit. Yeah.
There you go. False summit, perfect example.
Yeah.
They do that purposely on some of these yomps, so you are just getting broken all the time. But everyone had their moment. I had my moment. Like when you just need someone to help you along, push you along a bit, or someone just pushing on your back. Everyone has a little moment, and yeah, it's just relentless for those 8 months of training. But like I said, it's incredible because you see. I saw some lads, right, at the beginning of training. So I went in a little bit older, right? I went in when I was, 22, 23. And there were some of the younger lads, they were like 17, right? And a couple of them were like little toe rags. I'm not going to mention his full name. Sam, his name was. I'm from Liverpool, right?
From
Lovely
Bethnal
guy.
Green, lives at 23.
Yeah, lovely guy, right? Went SF, by the way. Awesome guy. But at the start of training, what a toe rag. What a toe rag. Wow, wow, wow. The transformation, the upgrading in mindset, the type of character the guy developed over that time was sensational. Yeah. And he didn't develop that character by always told he was right when he was wrong. He developed that character by being put in situations to grow and to be part of a team. Yeah. And that's why I'm so passionate about anything about culture. And when you harness people's strengths and you face things head on and you look at ownership, not excuses, and committing to things. Because I've seen firsthand what that can do to individuals and teams. Yeah. But yeah, some of those yomps, honestly, like, and the saying was, if you could get through violent entry, you could then get through final X. So they purposely made violent entry really tough because every week you're getting more tired. You've got niggles, you've got infections, sprains, cuts, you're depleted. So if you can get to violent entry and past that, you'll pass your final X. Yeah. If you pass your final X, you then got your commando tests after that. But every week you're battling with something different, you know, like whether it's an injury, a niggle. I was in sick bay once, and my back was in a bad way at one point. I think I passed my commando test taking a lot of diclofenac, a lot of diclofenac, seriously, right? Yeah. And the guy next to me was literally getting his heel, the sole of his foot, as they took his sock off, the whole sole on the bottom of his foot came off. Yeah, from just being attacked his feet with his boots, from all the wetness and the cold. Absolutely crazy. Oh. So like, yeah, it was an incredible experience. And if anyone's listening, trust me. If you've got someone that's close to you that's thinking about going in the Marines, back them up. Because it's absolutely sensational. It is a cool job, and you do things that you wouldn't experience anywhere else, and it's a lot better than Call of Duty as well. A lot better than Call of Duty.
Chris, wrapping up the Marine part of it,
yeah,
as you've just described it, like I've never heard described. It was quite interesting. I just sat back listening to then take all of that part of your life into the route you've taken now, which is a lot more around psychology and using. Yeah. Because there's a PT, the classic PT. Yeah, you are not the classic PT. You know,
I was when I first came out. But
it's evolved now into the psychology, and you kind of created this Therapycise blueprint. You know, and we mentioned the toolkit. So, do you want to just share with us a little bit on, you know, what you'd learned and who you were as a person, but now what that Therapycise toolkit looks like and how that kind of benefits your clients and people that you'll work with in the future?
Yeah, for sure. I always talk about the flip. So like when I first left the Marines and went into personal training, which I really enjoyed, it was very focused on the physical, you know, the body and body fat and strength and exercise. And then what I found, and I touched on mindset and habits and behaviors, but what I found was that the more I got into it, the more I understood psychology and the impacts of certain choices and habits that clients are making and that empowerment of it, that I realized that actually what I prefer to work in is the mind and the headspace. And a tool of that is the physical game. So rather than the PT being the physical game with an element of mindset and mental work, I flipped it. Now I work on the mind. And by the way, one of those tools, if you want to help your mind, is exercise and movement. Yeah. And it's like I said, Therapycise was born out of it. When I left the Marines, it was achieve results personal training. Sounded good at the time. I was like, yeah, why not? Then that developed into the fundamental coach because I'm all about the fundamentals, but it's also about having fun and also the mental aspect. And then that has now evolved into Therapycise. Yeah. It's not therapy. It's not counseling. It's exercise for the mind. It's games, it's tools, it's methods, it's daily practices. No 0 days on working on your mind. And that's what Therapycise is. Like, you know, I know we're on a video call now. You talk about things like habits being a no 0 days. I hope you brush your teeth every day, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Do you drink water every day?
yeah,
Yeah. Do you eat food every day?
yeah.
Other than when you're fasting. Other than when you're fasting,
Other
Ian,
than when
yeah?
I'm
And you sleep
fasting,
as
yeah.
well, yeah?
Yeah,
You both don't
yeah,
eat
not
much.
every day.
Yeah. I'd like to think you sleep every day. You probably rest up every day. You breathe. Why do we do those things every single day?
Because they're required.
Yeah, I'll go bigger than that. Just required, or are we talking bigger than that?
They're needed. You need to do them.
Yeah,
It's
I'd say they're
essential.
mission critical.
Yeah, yeah, mission critical,
Absolute
essential. Yeah.
mission critical to survival. So why aren't we saying to people, hey, you need to be doing something for your mind every day? As important as doing your teeth, as important as drinking water, as important as going out for a walk, as important as getting changed and sleeping. You've got to do something for your mind. And that's
Yeah.
where the Therapycise kind of toolkit came about. It was to like develop a set of tools and methods that you apply every single day without fail. And that's, I really strongly believe in this stuff. And if we can get more kids adopting it, parents, professionals, teachers, and some of this stuff, you know, it doesn't take long. Like I could talk forever on the toolkit. I designed it. Some of these tools, you do a set of affirmations. It's less than a minute.
Yeah.
Man, as you know, Dave, we spoke about the vagus nerve earlier. You can do a couple of good quality deep breaths, diaphragmic breathing, the physiological side.
And it'll change your sympathetic nervous system.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. And for anyone that's listening, when you heard Dave there mention the parasympathetic nervous system, just think P for parasympathetic is peaceful. And the S and F, the sympathetic nervous system, is the stress, gets you excited, gets you going. It supplies energy and chemicals to get you REM.
Now, the rest and recover, fight or flight is the same thing, which you may have heard of. You won't have heard of the vagus nerve necessarily, but it's ultimately that is the nerve that runs the top of your head all the way down to your spine, and every nerve off it stretches across your back like wings. When you feel tight shoulders, there, clear sign of built up stress, your body's out of sync, your HRV will be changing. There's tons of different things, but this vagus nerve is responsible for basically you.
But that's it. But I guarantee if you went and spoke to 15 random people, said, what's the vagus nerve? You get a bit of a puzzle look. And it's not for me to sound really smart and, oh, look what I know and you don't know. But it's because we're not talking about this stuff. And do you know what I love about this, what you just mentioned, Dave? You do a couple of good, decent breath. I'm talking proper breathing, Teddy. Get your diaphragm working. Be intentional. Make it a choice.
Yeah.
Less than 30 seconds, you will see a physiological change.
Yeah,
and if you see a physiological change and you behave and you feel a certain way, you can think a different way.
Yeah.
So like
if that's to build up habits then as well, because you need the outcome before you can build the habits, don't you, Chris? So when you start to see these small snippets of achievements, they're leaving signs for the algorithm to pick up when you need it next.
Yes.
That was a good idea. That was a good idea. That was a good idea. The more good ideas we have.
Stack. 100%. And it's powerful stuff. But I sometimes get clients, like when we do deep breathing work, gents, you look at biofeedback. The easiest way of getting biofeedback, it depends on what you're wearing, it could be a smartwatch.
Yeah.
Okay. And just get someone to look at their heart rate, get them to relax for a minute and just don't do anything crazy. Look at their heart rate. Do a minute or two of deep breathing.
Yeah.
And you're like, wow. And you say to someone, for example, look at a car, you go on a long car journey. What would happen if you went on a long car journey and you didn't stop at the service or you didn't slow down, or you didn't take a break? That car engine is going to get hotter and hotter, it's going to go. It's exactly the same when you work the PNS. It's giving yourself a little bit of time each day.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be long. It could be a few minutes, but just giving yourself some space and some time to just do that.
Yeah.
And if you do that daily, you will say, by the way, this stuff's free, by the way. I don't want to share too much because I've got to sell some stuff as well, right? But
we'll get them in, mate. You're that good. You're that good. They'll pay for you anyway. Don't you worry about that.
You know that. But
I've got a big question actually based on this now, because
yeah,
one of the things that generally don't go in the same room, let alone sentence, is Royal Marines therapy.
Yeah.
Because they're so polar opposites in most people's opinions. So one of the things that obviously you talk about and how the Marines nurture their candidates to grow from, pretty much like you see on here, these are the guys who are coming in on training, and where are you? That way, I was going backwards because he's mirrored. That's you at the end.
Yeah. Needs to be even more athletic, the one on the right, though.
Don't worry, mate. Easy go. Don't worry about that. So, so one of the things is the questions that I've got here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of pain shown in the Marines training.
Yeah.
Now, in life nowadays, we're very mamby-pamby, I would say, a lot less dominant on what we could or should be doing. And we seem to have found ourselves in a place where a lot of people are afraid to speak out in case of offending somebody and this, that, and the other. So
Yeah.
coming from not just the Marines, because I think if I pulled someone out of the Marines, I might have a slightly different answer to what you're going to give right now.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But from someone with your Marine background, combined with the therapy aspect, mindfulness, everything else, what issues do you see and what should we be doing? Is there a conflict here? Do we need to start giving a slap across the face to ourselves and our loved ones to wake up? Or are there other ways around it? I'm not sure I'm asking the right way of
being honest, right? It's all about being honest. I look at, I'm a very different person now in 2024 to what I was in 2004, same as 2014. I've now got 4 beautiful daughters, my beautiful wife, and I've changed a lot in that time as well. But what I've found is there's no one approach that works for everyone, but you've got to set aside a little bit of time and see what works for you. That's why I'm always very cautious when someone says, this is the best way. This is the #1 way. This is what you have to do to get this type of result.
Yeah.
There's loads of different tools, just like a tradesperson has a big bag or box of tools for certain jobs. They've probably got a favorite tool. They've probably got a tool they use the majority of the time.
Yeah.
But certain tools just suit certain jobs. So like for me, I'm all about the discipline. I'm all about the hard work, being honest, being unapologetically committed to everything that I do. But at the same time, sometimes you need to show some self-love as well, right? Like I do something, there's a tool called the 90-second self-love hug, right? And I promise you, we all know, if anyone is listening, about oxytocin. Well, you look at oxytocin, it's also known as the relationship, the bonding hormone.
Yeah.
Okay, now there's quite a lack of it in modern life, I think, in certain situations. It was caused up by COVID as well. And if let's say you're on your own a lot, you lose that relationship, that feeling, that connection. But man, you can get oxytocin just from showing a bit of love to yourself. So I do a tool with a client where you literally hug yourself for 90 seconds. By the way, this works really well if you do it with someone. So if you're with
hug somebody else, or you just stand there hugging yourself.
But you can do it with yourself as well. And when I mean hug, I'm talking grip. I'm talking hold tight like your life depends on it. Not just going through the motions. Not just 90 seconds. Nice. I'm talking hug. Show yourself some love. And I promise you, when you do this with someone else as well, when you go home tonight, you will see what I mean when I describe how the impact will make you feel. 90 seconds is a long time.
It is.
Okay? Just go throw someone in a boxing ring for 90 seconds and they'll tell you it's a long time, right?
Yeah.
You do that for 90 seconds. You go through certain emotions. Even if it's someone you've known like for a long time, like your partner or one of your kids or one of your best friends, 90 seconds to grip, to hold, to cuddle, to embrace. Male, female, doesn't make a difference, right? It is a long time. You will feel the energy between the two of you. You go through different emotions like, oh, this is nice.
Then it's awkward.
Yeah, it gets a little bit awkward. You're like, oh, and then all of a sudden, you just feel yourself relaxing. And then you could be in that position for hours.
Yeah.
But again, what's the key with that? You got to put yourself into position to do this stuff.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm all about your environment. I know you guys have your kind of 8 disciplines of peak performance, right?
Yeah.
I use a model called mastery, and it's very similar in that there's key kind of areas. But the E in mastery stands for environment.
Yeah.
Which is why, by the way, I'm all for working on my individual clients, but do you know what? You've got to work on the environment as well at the same time.
Yeah.
If you are not considering the environment that you are in, the work environment, the home environment, the social environment, the playful environment, the sexual environment, everything.
Yeah.
You can do all that stuff on your own. You've got to work on that. But you work that environment and you play with it and you dance with it and you get it working. And all of a sudden, that environment and the individuals, don't get me wrong, sometimes it can cause that.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a bad thing, though. It's not good or bad, that, is it?
Yeah, but it's about being honest with yourself and putting time into it. And I think for me, it sounds really cheesy, but it's about helping people's happiness, right? And I've seen firsthand within a family, having kids, a wife, like if family is important to you, you work on that family environment and you make it a priority. So when someone says, what was the last thing, you put a big smile on your face with your kids, you can name it like that.
Yeah.
There's a tool, you may have done this before, gents, where it's called the 3 things tool. In my opinion, by the way, this is one of the most powerful tools that anyone can do, and it will change your mindset and your mental health in under a week.
And that's where we stop.
Okay, okay.
That's the
is what
diary of a
use.
CEO
That's
drop.
what we use for the for the beginning. All you need to do is this one thing.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I like that. Yeah. And now I'm not going to say it. but the three things, Toy. Do you mind me sharing it now?
Please
Yeah,
do.
go for it.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. What I love about it, and it's simplicity. Every night before you go to sleep, before you already do something that you might set an alarm, you might turn the TV off, just something you bracket, piggyback this habit onto that. You're already doing something else, takes minimal investment, minimum energy to do this as well. You just spend a couple of minutes enjoying, re-experiencing three things from that 24 hours that makes you feel good, that makes you feel proud, that makes you feel grateful, makes you feel positive. The key here is the umbrella of positive emotions.
Yeah, gratitude.
Sometimes you may do this and you may fall asleep. Okay, so win-win, brilliant. Just get you nice and relaxed, you fall asleep. But really, the key with this is it does a bit of reprogramming. So the last thing that your conscious mind has in its awareness before you go to sleep is three positive little memory dumps of things that have made you feel happy.
Yeah.
You cannot help over time, if you do this, no 0 days, doing it every day, feel good about life. You get good at cultivating the positive emotions. And by the way, we're not saying block out, repress the negative, because we know what happens with things like that. They rear their ugly head and they come back bigger and stronger.
Yeah.
I'm just playing like a volume. I'm saying, hey, look, the volume on the negative thoughts is like that, maybe. But you know what? If I crank up my positive dial at the end of every single day, it's the last thing my brain gets before I go to sleep. And then I do it the next day. And you get really good. And by the way, team, you would not believe the difference in someone that does this within a week. You can get them to do it on day 1, day 2, and they'll be sat there like after the first and second thing. You're like, hey, I know there's a third one there. I know you got a third. And then they'll come up with it. By day 2, by day, it's like that. You get really good at just cultivating positive emotions. So there's a real conscious and unconscious method to it. But yeah, if you're listening to this and you're not currently utilizing that tool, it's free. It takes you 2 minutes, 3 positive things every single night before you go to sleep. I promise you, you've heard it here. It will change your life. Simple as that.
Love that
stuff. Yeah, Chris, we spoke about a lot of different things here, and I want to cover one of the points because a lot of people that listen to this are parents.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You're a parent times 4 because you got 4 daughters, like you mentioned. And I wanna just sort of, with everything you've learned about standards, trust of being in the Marines, and then the route that you've gone around understanding the brain, then flipping that into family life as a parent, because I think our generation has got a real strong responsibility to change the curve, a little bit like what Dave was saying, the route that it's going. And we've had lockdown and we've had challenges and we've got all social media and this artificial world that we live in.
Yeah.
And I think our generation is going to be super responsible for the future of what happens with kids and how they're brought up. And I'm just interested to know, in your household, what are some of the kind of top 3 things, disciplines, habits that you bring into being a parent with your girls? You know, but I've got 2 daughters, so I also think there's an element of, when you're raising daughters, you've got a bigger responsibility to give them a certain level of awareness. When you're bringing up sons, you have a responsibility to make them understand levels of respect, but as daughters, they have to have a certain type of awareness. So how do you sort of handle that?
Oh, everything I've said, throw it out the window with teenage daughters. None of it applies. None of it applies. Like, you know, see you later. We need to do another podcast for this. Yeah, completely different.
I've got two older daughters. I've got a 20-year-old and 18-year-old. Well, I can tell you now what you've just said is true.
Yeah. No, you know. I tell you one thing we've got to give teenagers a big credit for. We don't say it enough. I know teenagers get a real hard kind of thing in modern life, right? But we were all teenagers once, right? Yeah. And something that I always think back to the fact that I know I made loads of mistakes, loads of decisions that maybe weren't the right at the time. Name one teenager that hasn't. But I try and get across with that with the way I parent. I'm far from perfect. And by the way, there is no parenting playbook. That's what makes being a parent the hardest job in the world. Yeah. You can't teach your stuff. We're talking lots of individuals in the dynamic. Everything shifts. It's not just an easy system you can manage. There's always something, a curveball, things like that. But the teenage brain is a crazy one. There's so much neuronal change going on at that time, and they're learning. So something that we've adopted. And by the way, I always like to be cautious when I talk about things about being a parent, because there is no perfect parent. There is no perfect family. And it's a hard job, but I absolutely love it. Something that I've adopted in the last few years is do as I do, not do as I say. You know, my parents, I love them to bits, right? Love them to bits. They gave me a great upbringing, but they were a lot more the old school. No, do this, do that.
Yeah, do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, exactly. And so when I adopt certain habits and challenges, my motivator is that I'm doing it. I don't expect my kids to follow me, but they're seeing me being a role model. Whether that's fitness, whether that's health, whether it's mental performance, whether it's relationships, whether it's the way that my wife and I behave to each other in front of our children, like all the time, they're like sponges.
Yeah.
Like everything, even when you think they're not listening, they are. Even when you think they're not watching, they are. So like a big motivate for me is do as I do, not do as I say. And I use on my kids in a really good way and my wife to really motivate me to do things. Because I almost think, like, I'll tell you a funny story, and it's not me doing my kids, but doing my wife. When I did boxing a couple of years ago, I had a couple of bouts. First round knockout on both of them, may I say. And,
Yes.
and my motivator, people said, like, you know, we know you've always trained hard. You got your weight right down. I don't like training on Saturday afternoons. It's not my thing. But we had Saturday, like, daytime training. How could you get down and do the sparring when you don't like it? I had this image in my mind and I was like, do you know what? The last thing I want is two things. One is my kids not knowing that I've given 110% no matter what the result is. But the second one, which is the funny one, is my motivator every single day was I don't want my wife to see the soles of my feet. And if my wife is seeing the soles of my feet, something has gone horribly wrong. Now, obviously, I'm having a bit of fun there. Like, you can't control the outcome in boxing. Like, you say you can give it your fighting chance. You give it 110% so that you give yourself.
You can put it in your favor with training.
Yeah, no, definitely.
The
you can push it in your favor with the processes. But like anything, the outcome, there's always a bit of variability with it. But I truly believe that when you look at your identity and your behaviors that are aligned with that, you give yourself a fighting chance. And it's a quote, Dave, that I say to my clients on the first session I start working with them. We need to give yourself a fighting chance. Start believing in yourself, but you do that by actions, not by just thinking and talking about it. So let's get a little bit of momentum. Let's get a bit of psychological momentum with something small, something easy. Let's build that up.
Build the achievement.
Marathon. Yeah. Like whatever your goal is, let's just start small, reverse engineer it a little bit. Where are we at? What's worked previously? We don't need to reinvent the wheel maybe, and get that momentum. But going back to the original question, we introduced something actually. A year or so ago, we went on a parenting course. I don't mind saying this. Like we got teenage girls, man. You can never do enough learning about anything. I'm a big learner. I love learning about new stuff. If I can learn about being a better parent, yeah, I'll do that. No problem. So we went on this parenting course and they introduced this thing called a family meeting. And they're like, you do it in work, do it in other situations, you do it in sports, have a family meeting once a week. So Sunday night, every single Sunday, since we went on this course, we do a family meeting. And when I mean, it's formal but informal. The only time we haven't done it is, let's say, a couple of kids have been away or we've been away, and we're like, oh, we don't need to do it today. But it's every Sunday, 7 p.m. We all get round, youngest to oldest. You got Bella, our 4-year-old, 3 at the time. Bella, have you got anything you want to say? She'll be like, I love my teddies. And it's like, okay, well done. Thank you very much for bringing it to me. And then they love like Sophia, and she always starts with the same thing, and I love it. And she's not arrogant at all, but she goes, I love myself. I'm like, brilliant. There you go. Great foundation. We love that. You keep loving yourself. And then we'll go around and Sienna might be like, oh yeah, I've got this after school this week. And it's just bringing things to the table. Yeah. And then Summer might go and we talk about, obviously it's different things you speak about the ages. Then Emma would go and then it would be me. All right. And we just spend a little bit of time. And the most important thing about it, it's not like it's some big organized note taken. It's not that. But do you know what I love about it, gents? Is that you have got a space every single week. And even if your kids 90% of the time go, I've got nothing to add of any value today, they know that in that time, every Sunday, if they want to bring something to the table, you're there and you're listening.
Yeah, they're going to be heard, which is huge.
Yeah.
Being heard is one of the fundamental desires of a human.
Yeah.
To be heard.
You know that, right? Yeah, and there's a difference between actually listening and hearing as well, right?
Yeah, feeling you're heard means people understand. Yeah, that's why it's different. So being heard is to be understood as a person.
So powerful.
Yeah, it's hugely powerful.
Yeah, you mentioned the All Blacks jersey earlier on.
Yes.
I've got Legacy mirrored, that one there. Behind me, you can see Legacy.
Yes.
And that's the name of the book, the James Kerr book that's talks about.
I've got it just here.
You got it there.
Yeah.
The best book I've ever listened to, in fact, not read, but I love that book. And one of the things they talk about is when they've got their leadership team, effectively like quite almost culturally around the campfire.
Yes.
They pass the baton round, don't they? They pass,
Yes.
and whoever holds the baton is speaking. No one interrupts that individual while
Yeah.
they talk. So everyone gets to share their thought. And it's a bit like the team meeting, the family meeting you talk about there. Big game changer for us in our household is we changed just before Christmas, actually, we changed our dining table that was in the kitchen that was falling apart. It was old.
Yeah.
One of the chairs had broken. And it was on its way out, but we changed it to a breakfast booth. So every morning, all four of us, without
Yeah.
fail, kids have breakfast. I have my space goods tea. The missus
Yeah.
has a cup of tea. Even if it's just 10 minutes, but every morning for 10 minutes, no phones. We have breakfast, we eat together, we start the day as a
Yeah.
family, and we end the day as a family. And that's made a difference to our dynamic, I think.
It's making it a priority. And that's the thing, like in life, I truly, you know, I know we're coming away from what we're talking about there, but I truly believe you name anything in life, you always give yourself a chance of achieving that if you put time into it and you make it a priority. You set aside some space for it, whether it's family time, whether it's earning more money, whether it's getting fit, it's about making it a priority. So like one of the first things I say to clients, for example, if movement is a key thing for anyone that's listening right now, the easiest thing you can do, which most people already have a digital calendar. You'll already have a calendar. You'll have like maybe you've got your key things in there, like your work meetings. Everything goes in my calendar. When we've got a family of 6, it's important that I'm organized. I'm not always perfect, but I try to be as perfect as possible. Those movement sessions go in that calendar. It's not, I'll try and fit a movement session in. They are in the schedule. And I've got a big believer because it's one of my, we're not talking about it today because we haven't got time, Keystone habits. For some people, it's movement. For some people, it's things like this, connection time. For some people, it's nutrition, right? If it is that important, my Keystone habits, I can move throughout my day, but I can't delete them. So for example, let's say a client, I've got a stack day, and a client said, could I change my timetable to this time? If I can move my movement session, of course. If it involves me taking out the movement, can't do it. Because I know the value that gives me. It makes me a better person.
Mm.
And that's at home and at work. So like there's certain rules and disciplines that can work really well for you. By the way, to speak about the legacy book, I know I'll go on a bit and I'll start getting excited, but what I love about that book, and it's one of my favorite New Zealand quotes, and it's big in the Marines, and I've got it up, we utilize this at home. No one's too big to sweep the sheds. No one is too big to sweep the sheds. Doesn't matter whether you're the best player on that All Blacks team. When it's your turn to sweep the sheds, you sweep the sheds. Brilliant. Love that. No one's too big for those duties. Whether it's, you know, even like we used to get woken up in the Marines and training and everyone had to do their cleaning and stuff like that. No one's too big for that. Doesn't mean if you're a diamond in the troop, the fittest, the strongest, everyone got up and did that. And you know that there's those certain rules that just apply. But yeah, New Zealand, I could talk forever about that book and like you said, passing the baton. But for me, that sweeping of the sheds is just, it's on point. Doesn't matter how big you get. No one's too big to sweep the sheds.
Yeah, I love that. There's a lot of things that people can pick up from you that we haven't touched on in this podcast.
Yeah, of
on
course.
your socials. You're big on a live video, you know,
Yeah,
probably
definitely.
a couple of times a week, maybe 4 or 5 times a week. You'll do a live video, you'll post it on your Facebook page. There's things like the keystones that you talk about there. Last year you ran 5K every day for the whole year without no days off, you know, no days off. Whether you were in Florida with the kids or whether you were ill, you were running.
Can I
So where
tell you a funny story about that, quickly?
Yeah, go for it.
We went on a lads trip to Portugal, right? And it was a brilliant trip. And I said to them, I said, I'm doing this run. They're like, how are you going to do the one? We're on a lads trip. Anyway, we're on the plane. We had a couple of beers at the airport, right? We land in Portugal and the lads are sorting out the car. I'm like, man, if I don't do this run soon, because we left early in the morning, if I don't do this run soon, I'm going to be in a bad way. It's a lads trip. It was, you know, boys together. It was brilliant. Yeah. So anyway, I'm like, do you know what? I'm at the airport. I'm doing a 5K. I've got 20 minutes here. So bear in mind, we've been sat on a plane with all these groups of lads, girls, mixed groups, having banter, having a laugh. I'm there, trainers on, change my rig. I'm running around the airport car park doing this 5K. And you could literally see these groups going, was that guy just on our plane? Was that guy just doing like drinks with his mate? It can't be him running around this area. Go in the car, see you in the car, we went off. Yeah. 5K, again, no 0 days. One of those reasons for that challenge was exactly that. When I first said it, my wife said to me, she goes, oh, what about the Disney holiday? And bless her, she had a real good point, but what about the Disney holiday? What about your lads trip? What about Christmas? And it made me go, That's why it's a challenge.
Have I got 30 minutes
Yeah.
every single day
Yeah.
that I can get this done? And the answer is always yeah.
Yeah, but you've got to find the time. So like I always say to people, gents, like when I did that challenge last year, about 70% of the year, no problem at all. Like can seamlessly, it was fit, boom. About 20%, yeah, took it, maybe not ideal, maybe not optimal, but I can fit it in. 5% was a bit of a pain in the butt. And then there was about 5% where it was really, oh my goodness, I consciously procrastinated. I really don't, I don't feel like I don't want to, but you did it. And it was the fact that you couldn't take that day off.
Yeah.
Like you're getting it done. And I'm not saying that everyone's got to do something like that. Like even if you just said, I'm not going to do a 5K every day, but I'm going to move every day. I'm going to do 5 minutes of movement or walking. You haven't got to do a 5K every day. And by the way, I'll tell you a very quick story. Do you know what made that challenge even better, gents?
Well,
is that the year that I did my 5K every day, feeling great, brilliant, look at me, this is excellent. Some guy from Yorkshire did a marathon every day, the same year. So like, so if you can imagine, on the 1st of January, the following year, the amount of messages I was getting from my friends and people that know me with just a link to the guy up north that had done the marathon.
You said, pussy on your text message. You know, what's this all about?
I'm like, yeah, like 5K to a marathon. It just, but I love stuff like that. It's humbling. But honestly, that's just a funny little story about Sod's Law. Like, why couldn't he done it a different year? But hey, it's a bit of fun. But like, it was a really good challenge. And yeah, man, like doing stuff like that, like the Portugal and even the Disney run. Like, I know we haven't got long. Like, I tried to get up every morning and do the run before we went to Disney. And we're on a family holiday. I didn't get up every morning. But you know what? That moment when you've had a kid on your shoulders for like 8 hours, you've done 25, 30,000 steps, you've been in the rides, and you get back and you haven't done the run that morning, you're like, man, I've got to go out and run. And I tell you what, when you've had a kid on your shoulders for 8 hours or 6 hours, and you've been in queues, and you've been walking around, and then you have to go out in the hot climate of Florida and do your 5K at night. And it's funny because there's no perfect plan. I'd say each night, I'm going to get up in the morning and do it. If it had a couple of drinks, a bit of a late one, I didn't always get up. But you know what? Still did the 5K every day. And if it was easy, it wouldn't be worth doing it. There was times when I struggled. There was times when I was like, I don't want to do the run. And I consciously procrastinated. But it felt great. Funny old thing, doing what you said you were going to do. Powerful mental concept. Self-care is much better than self-hatred all day long.
And there you go. Being a dad in Florida, Disneyland, requires marine level training prior.
Yeah.
Have you seen the video?
Running on the treadmill with the kids.
Yeah, running on the treadmill with the 2 kids. Such a good video. Chris, we've taken a lot of your time there, and you've shared a lot of value. And yeah, for me, I know you, but at the same time, to hear the marine element of things, and I think me and you have kind of evolved a long way since we've known each other. 100%. So to hear you catch up on some of those points and some of those bits, I've jotted down a lot of stuff. That 3 things tool. You know, there's someone I know that needs that 3 things tool. So I'm going to share that with them for sure. So I really appreciate that. What are the best places for people to follow you? Is it Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn? Where's the best place for people to check you out?
Yeah, so I put a lot of content on LinkedIn and Facebook. I've obviously got my website, therapycise.co.uk. My LinkedIn, my Instagram, sorry, it's like a feeder. It's like an automated feed from my Facebook feed. I went a bit minimal last year, and I was trying to minimize the amount of channels. And it wasn't that I didn't like these other channels, but it was the engagement time that it also took on having lots of different channels. But Facebook and LinkedIn mainly. And to be honest, anyone, and I say this really genuinely and authentically, I like helping people with their mind. And if they want to work on their mind and it's important to them, drop me a message. Even if it's I'll ping you a voice. I say to my clients all the time, there's never, like, don't be wrong, I might not always respond straight away. But if you need a voice note, just drop me a message. There's always time for the right people that want to help themselves with their mind. And I love working with people that have got families, clearly, because I've seen the pros and cons. The pros when you work on this for the people that matter to you, but also the cons of meeting people and being in situations where if you don't put this mind first, it never just impacts yourself. It impacts also the people you care about. So like, if you need a bigger reason why you work on this, you work on your mental game, trust me, it impacts everything and everyone in your life. And for me, that's exceptionally powerful.
Love that, mate. Thank you. And for anyone listening, he said leave a voice note, but don't. Give Chris a call. Give Chris a call on his phone just for the voicemail alone, because I promise
I've changed it. I've changed it slightly.
Don't do that to me, Chris.
No, I know. So I still started with a funny one, congratulating someone for leaving a voicemail. I still start with a bit of fun, but it hasn't got the cowboy now. But I may bring it back. I've had a lot of requests for it, so I may bring it back.
Bring it back. The best one. Chris, quite cracking podcast. Thank you very much. And yeah, we will be putting some of Chris's socials in the show notes. So definitely give him a follow and reach out if you feel, you would benefit from chatting with Chris. So thank you very much, Dave. Appreciate it as well. See you all soon, everyone.
Cheers, team. Thank you.